So lots of eyes on the upcoming budget release this week for Australia, especially in light of the election later this year. Latest news announced the Labor Party found more than $2 billion in budget savings, while the Treasurer Jim Chalmers hinted towards a budget deficit forecast. Should the budget deficit be confirmed, which personally I think it will, we'll be expecting to see a depreciation on the Australian dollar. The announcement itself should bring some volatility into all the Aussie dollar pairings, so potentially some good opportunities for any Aussie currency traders. On the next day, on the Wednesday, we have the AU CPI release. Forecasts are currently expecting a rise in CPI above 3%, in turn putting further pressure on the Australian dollar. Then lastly for this week, I've got the US final GDP. So we'll be focusing on the GDP read with forecasts expecting a 2.4% rise compared to the previous 2.3%. An improvement in the GDP reading should see an uptick in the dollar, seeing its improvement against major currencies. However, at the moment, the dollar is still facing some uncertainties in the face of the imposed tariffs. Announcements on the US tariffs are scheduled early next week, with higher inflationary pressures on the dollar being the expected outcome. So overall, given the context for the week, I would expect to see some volatility on the Aussie USD pairing alongside the other USD pairings. I'll pass that back on to you now, Jeff, for the technical analysis.
All right, just before we jump into text, I wanted to add that that budget announcement comes out Tuesday evening. There's a very large rumour going around the market that depending on how that's received and how it's received will be defined by the headlines in the Sydney Morning Herald and the Australian the next day, will determine whether Albanese actually calls the election. If it's well received and it looks like this is going to be a very, very big spending budget, he might call the election. And if it's not as well received as he expects, people do love to get free money when it's taxes that we've already paid. But if it's not received as well as what he hopes, it might be pushed off. But the rumour is by the end of next week, there's a very good chance that we're going to get an election date. We're all waiting for that with bated breath.